workshop. My name is Cecilia Zamora. I'm president of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Marin, and we work very closely with the Marin Builders Association. The Chamber has a strategic alliance with the Marin Builders Association, which we're very proud of. And of that outcome are these types of workshops. So we hope you'll enjoy it. I want to introduce Christine Puccini and Rick Wells, who's not on video, but he will be talking via audio, I think, for a second. And Christine?
Welcome, everybody. Christine Puccini, Director of Membership and Business Development for Marin Builders Association. We're an association of the building professionals in Marin County, and we're very excited to be partnering in this wonderful event today. And thank you all for being here.
Great.
Everyone, thanks for being here. Rick Wells with the Marin Builders Association. Thank you to Cecilia and Christine, and look forward to hearing from Karen and what she's got to say today. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. And we're so happy that you could at least join us for audio at this point. So thank you so much for that. So let me take some time and to introduce our expert workshop presenter today. Her name is Attorney Karen Carrera. She conducts investigations for both public and private employers in response to employee complaints of harassment, discrimination, retaliation, bullying, and other alleged employee misconduct. She speaks Spanish fluently and regularly conducts investigations in which she interviews witnesses in Spanish. So she's a great resource. Karen Carrera also provides expert witness testimony on the adequacy of workplace investigations, training policies, and other employment-related matters. She provides harassment and discrimination trainings and develops policies and procedures for employers in both English and Spanish. And in addition to that brief bio, I just wanted to let you all know that Karen Carrera is the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Marin's 2021 honoree for the Spirit of Marin Award for all the great pro bono work she does to represent the Latino community across the Bay. So thank you, Karen, for being with us.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I really appreciate being able to present to the Marin Builders Association. And as Cecilia said, I have been in employment, actually an employment and housing in the past attorney, but now strictly doing employment law. But for over 25 years, I believe this is my 27th year practicing law. And so I do specialize in employment law, and I help a lot of employers, such as yourself or business owners, to stay within the laws and to prevent discrimination and harassment lawsuits. But I also have been on the other side. I have represented plaintiffs in the past, and so my expertise comes from both sides of the aisle. I'm able to share, and I'm going to share some stories where I assisted some folks with some of these cases, and also some examples from other friends of mine and colleagues, so that I can, be able to help you prevent costly lawsuits, which is what we are going to talk about today, about best practices for working with Spanish-speaking employees and avoiding costly lawsuits. So let's get started. And I do want you to ask questions. If you want to put it in the chat, and then we can talk about it at the end, but I am okay if you want to if you have a comment or a question. I really don't mind that, because I want participation. All right, let me get started. So next slide here. All right, so the first thing in communicating with Spanish-speaking employers, I know many of you are in the construction industry. I've had many cases with construction workers, and I've advised construction companies as well as as an investigator, as a trainer and doing advice and counsel. So what is it that is at the heart of some of these issues that we see, like the discrimination and harassment issues? Well, the way I've seen it is that usually there's a manager who is involved. That's maybe and or some employees who just don't know the right way to act at work, and they're not being professional, right? And they're either bullying or harassing other employees, or the manager just does not have a good handle on what's going on. And many times companies with large populations of Spanish speaking employees, they hire what they think is a good manager. But sometimes the manager isn't communicating properly, right, with the employees, or maybe the owner isn't communicating properly with the employees and doesn't really know what's going on, right? Doesn't have their hand on the pulse of what's really going on. So I think if possible, it would be great if you could hire an HR manager, but I know many of you are small businesses, right? And you may not be able to hire an HR, a human resources manager. So if you hire a manager or an HR manager, make sure that they speak and read Spanish correctly and fluently to communicate with your Spanish speaking employees. That's the key, because if you don't have somebody there, then you're going to have to hire a good translator, right? Because most of the horror stories that I've seen in my practice have been because of lack of communication. And there's just, it really comes down to that. Like, someone is not really talking to the person that's causing the problem, or there's a lot of dissatisfaction and there's a person who's doing the bullying or something, or it could be the manager that's causing the problem. I can't tell you how many times good employers, good, honorable, honest employers have gotten into trouble because they've turned a blind eye and haven't been paying attention to what's happening, and they hire a manager who just basically ruins it for them, because they put so much trust in that manager. And then it turns out that the manager was just engaging in favoritism, or he or she was doing some of the harassment, or was just being so awful and mean and bullying, bullyish, engaging in what we call abusive conduct at work with the employees. So make sure that the manager or the HR person you hire doesn't have a conflict of interest with the other workers. I can't tell you how many times, especially I know in the restaurant, I've represented a lot of restaurant owners, and I've also represented a lot of restaurant workers, and they both, and hotel workers, and some construction workers as well, who tell me, oh yeah, the owner or the manager brought in his family member, and they're allowed to they can come in late, or they can leave early, or they get all kinds of favoritism. And so you really need to watch out for that. And I know that among Latino employees, I'm from Peru, I'm Latina. I know that a lot of folks bring in their friends, right? And their family members. So just make sure that's okay. That's okay. It's just, I would not recommend having a manager who has his family working under him or her, because there is a potential for conflict of interest or favoritism. The other thing I would really ensure, and this is that the manager or the HR not be biased against Latinos, and making sure that they're not treating them disrespectfully. I can't tell you, as I said, how many times I've seen good companies being sued because the manager is just being, just being horrible with the employees. And the way I've seen it is they start engaging in what's called, as I said, abusive conduct, which is basically bullying. And there's threats or harassment with the workers because they see themselves as superior. So the manager, and I don't mean in status, of course he's their supervisor, but what I mean is it's in, if you've hired a Latino manager, right? Sometimes, and I'm not saying always, there's plenty of wonderful and good Latino managers that do not treat other employees disrespectfully, but there's been many times when the manager thinks they're superior to the other employees because he or she speaks English, or she or he has been in the US longer, or they have their papers, they're documented, and the rest of the employees may not be documented. And so they use abusive conduct. Like, well, what are you going to do? They say things like, well, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to complain just because I did this to you? You're going to complain? Well, the workers, usually if they're undocumented, they're going to be afraid. They're going to be so afraid to complain. And then what's going to happen is that the rest of you as owners are going to pay the price for this manager who's treating the employees awfully or disrespectfully or bullying them or harassing them, right? So I think there needs to be a zero tolerance policy for bullying, threats, harassment. And of course, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but that comes with training, right? So, and also having good employee manuals. This is something that's really it's key to have a good employee manual that has been translated. So if you have to invest in hiring a translation company, find one online and have the manual translated. Because it has, the most important part is the harassment discrimination policy. That should be a very strongly worded, very concise, very well-written harassment discrimination policy, that there's zero tolerance at your workplace for any type of sexual harassment or racial or harassment, and you have to list all the protected categories, right? That you can't discriminate. In California, you can't discriminate on the basis of 17 protected categories, right? You can't discriminate on the basis of race. I'm not going to go through all 17, but it's basically like race, sex, national origin, ethnicity, disability, religion, gender, sexual orientation, and on and on and on, the veteran status. So there's 17 categories that you cannot discriminate or harass, and that should be in your policy. And we have some samples. If we'll talk about that. You can, email me and I can send you a sample harassment discrimination policy that you can use. But that should be translated for sure, and make sure that you give it to each employee and have them sign it and give them a copy. And there should also be a strongly worded non-retaliation policy in the manual that says, in Spanish, very clearly, if you complain about any type of discrimination or harassment at work, you are not going to be retaliated against. And that should be, and there should be a number for them to call if they feel that they've been harassed or discriminated or retaliated. So you should designate someone that they can contact that is very trusted, whether it's you as the owner, that's fine. You may not want to deal with it, but it's better to know that what's going on at work than to have to fight a very expensive lawsuit later on, right? And maybe the manager's not telling you everything. I just had a recent investigation that I did of a big mansion, a place in San Mateo County that all of the employees worked as groundskeepers. And there were 3 main managers and none of them knew what was going on. One of them kind of had his hand on the pulse a little bit, but the 2 of them had no idea what was going on. And there were all kinds of shenanigans. It was like harassment on the basis of sexual orientation. There happened to be a gay male employee, and everybody else, a lot of the workers were just saying how he's, just saying terrible things about him, basically, and constantly bullying him. And all Latino employees, all Spanish-speaking employees. There were a couple that didn't engage in the harassment, and I interviewed them. But guess what? The owner had no idea what was going on, because those managers had no idea what was going on because they didn't speak the language and they were trusting their foreman, who was Spanish speaking, but the foreman wasn't telling them anything either. So it's just a cautionary tale. Luckily, that one did not go to a lawsuit because, I gave them an investigation report and I told them about all the shenanigans that were going on at work, right? And they were able to stop it. But gosh, it would have been a very costly lawsuit because this was going on for a while. 2 years of taunting and bullying and horrible language. Please draft and have a good employee manual in Spanish. It doesn't have to be super long. It just has to have, and the most important part is having the harassment discrimination policy, because this is how, if you ever do get sued, the DFEH, the EEOC, or any judge in court will say, well, what did the employer do to prevent harassment? That's your only defense, right? In a lawsuit or a DFEH investigation. Your only defense as an employer is to say, I took immediate corrective action. I took immediate corrective action as soon as I found out what was going on. So what you would say, look DFEH, look judge, I have a great employee manual that's in Spanish, and this person signed, and so does the manager, and they knew what the policies were. We have a zero harassment tolerance, zero tolerance policy. So, and they knew, and they were trained, and we did everything we could to prevent this. That's your only defense. So that you should probably also include the number for the DFEH and the EOC in this discrimination harassment policy. Again, it would show the judge, look, I even gave them the number to call the DFEH and the EOC. All right. So again, the law requires that you take immediate, appropriate, and corrective action. So the word appropriate means that it's something that's, that matches the harm, right? So you as soon as you found out, you took action. So employees usually, if it's worse if the manager is obviously the harasser, because then it's automatically, it's like strict liability. You're the employer, the owner, is automatically liable if the manager was engaging in the harassment. If it was an employee that was engaging in the harassment, that was harassing or discriminating against other people, then you can't possibly know that unless the employees complain. So the manager you're strictly liable for the acts of a manager. As an employee, you're not liable until you knew or you should have known that the employee was harassing other people. So here are some tips for you. If anyone complains about harassment, discrimination, or bullying, or you hear any rumors about improper behavior at work, do not turn a blind eye. Take the time to investigate the claim. So you would meet with both sides, is what I do as an investigator. You meet with both sides and any witnesses. You ask the complainant, tell me what happened. What are you complaining about? Tell me, how can I help you? And ask him or her, who else, can you tell me anyone who has anything that can support your claim, or anyone who may have seen this or who also feels the same way. And you should use a reliable translator, not another employee or a family member. I mean, I really strongly suggest that you invest in having, there's a lot of, I should have included that in the resources for employees. There's a lot of translation services now that are very inexpensive, and you get them on the phone and they translate right there on the phone with you. So they can be on speakerphone when you're talking to the employee. And that way you're not relying on just the manager, who may also be involved in what's going on. And then take some written statements and have them sign the statements. Like, even if it's in Spanish, tell them, write down what you think happened, or what is happening to you. What is your concern? Now, some employees can't even read or write, right? Because they're so humble. They've come, they just don't have an education. So in that situation, you could have the translator give you write things down for you. And then try to make a determination who is telling you the truth based on the evidences. You've interviewed the harasser or the person who's bullying or whatever, and then you've interviewed the complainant, the person who is complaining, and then maybe you've interviewed a few other people at work, and then you make a determination who's telling you the truth based on the evidence, and document everything and make a determination. Whether it's that you suspend the person, or demote them, or fire them, or reduce their pay. You can do that based on your investigation that something is really going on here. But just document everything, because if that employee becomes a disgruntled employee who you fired, then you could say, look, I got this complaint that you were, you have a defense. I took immediate, appropriate, and corrective action. I did not let this fester. I did not let it go on and on after I heard rumors and speculation. I took action. All right. How are we doing on time?
We have about 25 minutes if you're going to take questions in between, and maybe 15 if you're going to take them at the end. Okay.
All right. Well, should we I'm going to just keep going then. Okay. And then the question is whether you hire, to hire or when not to hire an investigator like me, an attorney who is a neutral investigator who's going to come in and interview everybody and figure out what's going on at work. Because that can be, it can be costly, it can be expensive, right? And there's a lot of investigators out there who do this. They're all employment attorneys, most of them. And so I suggest, obviously I think that if it's a serious issue, you should hire an outside neutral investigator who speaks Spanish. and ensure that the investigator is neutral, meaning that they're not related to any party, anyone at work on either side. But it's something that you need to decide based on your initial investigation of what you saw. If you feel like, oh my God, this is very serious, I need to hire an investigator. Or you can ask your own attorney. Many of you probably do have an attorney, right, who advises you. If you don't, then, find one that you can call for just quick questions, advice and counsel attorney, and say, look, this is what's going on. Do you think I should hire an investigator? And then they'll tell you, yes, this is, you can't do this one yourself. You should probably hire an investigator to come in and figure out what's really going on. So anyway, the investigator interviews the complainants. The respondent is basically the harasser or the person causing the problems, right? And it could be more than one, right? I've had a case before where there was like a group of women that were bullying and harassing another woman at work. So it doesn't have to be one person, it could be more than one person. And there's also times when there's more than one complainant, right? There's more women that come out and tell you, oh yeah, this guy's was harassing me. And any witnesses. So that's what the investigator would do. They would talk to any witnesses in Spanish. But remember that sometimes people are afraid to come forward. But if you're the owner and you say, hey, and I have a sample letter for that as well, where you say, look, you have to participate in this investigation. And they'll participate. And I just set up, any investigator will set up the time, interview the witnesses in Spanish, and get at the bottom of what's really going on. And then the investigator should provide you with a written report that is protected under the attorney-client privilege, that you don't have to share with anybody. You don't have to give it to the complaining employee, even if the complaining employee says, well, I want to see the report. You don't have to, because it's attorney-client privilege with the investigator. That's why the investigator should be an attorney. So it's confidential until you decide that you want to reveal it. And if you get sued later on, you can use it in court to prove that you took immediate and appropriate corrective action. But you don't have to. You don't ever have to reveal the contents of that investigation report. I don't know if anybody kept up with what happened with with Como, right? Governor Como, that report was published. It was humongous. That was like, 150-page report or something like that. But that's, that had really salacious facts of all the things that the different women had said over time about him that he had done. That's what if any of you heard about that report, for example, that's what a written report looks like, but they're not 150, 200 pages usually. But anyway, so that's for you to keep. And then you take corrective action based on what the investigation report says. The investigator typically doesn't tell you what to do, but they tell you what they think happened based on the credibility of the witnesses, right? And then you decide what you are going to do. Are you going to fire the harasser? Are you going to fire the person who's discriminating? Or maybe the investigator says, no, I find that there's no merit to any of the complaints. And so you just keep going and you make a decision about what to do based on the report. But it may include, you may have to give the complainant a brief verbal explanation of the results of the investigation. just very brief, saying, we did conduct an investigation and we will take some action, but you don't have to necessarily say what kind of action you took, because it is a confidential employee matter. And you don't want to reveal private information about the respondent, the harasser. But you could say, look, we took care of the problem and you will no longer be working with, person X, something like that, if you find that there was merit to the report. So the next most important thing, so we've got the employee manual, we've got investigating when you know that there's a problem, and then there's training. This is so important, right? Because we know under California law, many of you know that a law was passed a couple of years ago requiring employers to that they do a sexual harassment prevention training that includes other types of harassment. It's not just sexual harassment, and it's also about abusive conduct and how to deal with abusive conduct, how to deal with transgender issues or sexual orientation issues. It's the training is requirement has become quite stringent, and it's required every 2 years of your managers, and it's 2 hours of training and 1 hour for the employees every 2 years. And it's for employers that are even small employers have to do it, 5 or more employees. So that's California law. So if you want some, when we get to the resources page, I'll tell you where you can do that training online at the DFEH, and it's free through the DFEH. But again, it's not very interactive. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I recommend hiring a Spanish-speaking attorney to conduct a live training or a Zoom interactive training on preventing harassment, discrimination, and bullying. And they should give people on the Zoom or on the live training lots of examples and call on people, make them talk, not just sit there like we're doing. I would love to be able to call on all of you right now, but I just want to get through the material so you have them. So yeah, it should be engaging so that people can ask questions, right? And this is my other tips for you, that you require attendance and sign in at the training, right? Make sure that they sign in and that they're there. Because what's the point of paying for this training, right, if they're not going to be there? And require that they turn on their Zoom camera. So many people have done those online trainings, but I just don't know what gets through to people on those online trainings. So if you have a live training or at least a Zoom training, then they're required to pay attention more, and give handouts with examples, require participation. And then I would say even provide incentives to attend the training. Say, okay, you're all going to get lunch this day. If you attend the training, we're going to pay you for the training, etc. And then have a certificate for the training, and say, if you fail to attend, put a warning in their file that they didn't attend. So those are some of my tips for the training. And I think it's really important. I think that's the key, is to train our employees and managers about how to, how to prevent this type of disrespect at work, right? It's like you too, all of you, who doesn't work is hard enough. Who wants to come to work and have to deal with shenanigans, right? With somebody making your life horrible at work, or, calling you names or saying inappropriate things so, that's why the training is so important. The training is the key, I am telling you. I mean, if you do this training with your employees and with your managers and you set the tone as the owner, like this is going to be a respectful workplace, zero tolerance for shenanigans and harassment and discrimination and name calling, then this is a respectful workplace. You come here to work. I don't want any gossip. I don't want any rumors. I want this to be a harassment-free environment. So, but the leadership comes from the top. So it comes from you. So I also gave you some resources for employers. So for instance, I said there is a free training at the DFEH, the Department of Fair Employment and Housing has a free sexual harassment prevention training, but I've looked at it. It's really long. It's pretty dense. But it's a starting point. If you cannot afford to do any type of live training, then at least you have that. And there's a bunch of online stuff. But like I said, some of this online stuff is just, first of all, a lot of Latino employees, it's not going to be translated for them. Or if it is translated, I don't know if, a lot of most employees have smartphones, but it's hard to read that stuff. You don't know if they have computers or an iPad, but I don't know. That's my belief, that some of these trainings online are just not sufficient to get at what, to really connect with folks. The EOC, also I've given you, so these are all resources for you to take back in case you need help with any of these issues. Like the Department of Industrial Relations, as you know, has so much information about rest periods and meal periods, and then, and everything which is wage and hour law. And then the Department of Labor Standards and Enforcement has this manual on all this good information. So, and I can't tell you, I have really great things to say about the California Chamber of Commerce. They have such great resources. They really, really do. So these are for you. And then you have my information here. So, and I do the advice and counsel, the manuals, the trainings, and the investigations. But, it's up to you to decide what's right for your company. And so I would like to take some questions, and maybe do we want to go to the chat, or do we want to take them?
Well, let's ask our attendees. Does anybody have any questions? You can raise your hand and we can recognize you. You can do the raising of the hand on the reaction, or you can just raise your hand. Well, I only see a few attendees, so I'm not sure. I had a quick question while people are thinking.
Okay.
Karen, in your resource list, do you think most of those resources are actually translated in Spanish on those websites? So I know if they're state or federal type of departments, they usually have translations, and they're usually like not very good, but at least they have translation pages. Is that helpful to direct your employees to that?
I think the DFEH definitely is a good resource. And I believe they have a lot of information in Spanish, the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, and so does the EEOC. I believe Cal OSHA does too. I'm not really sure. I know the DLSC, the Department of Industrial Relations, and the Department of Labor Standards Enforcement also has resources in Spanish. So yeah, you just got to go on these websites and look for resources in Spanish for employees.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the Cal Chamber also provides some resources for employees.
Great, another resource.
Spanish. Yeah.
Another question I had, if nobody else is going to ask, is what do you think about pulling together your employees like in a conference room to watch, even if it's the free training? So at least you know that they're watching it together versus, giving them time to watch it on their own. Is that helpful at all?
I
So I
think
know
that's a
that,
good idea. Yeah. What, I'm sorry, I cut you off. What else were you going to say?
well, I was going to say, because you never know what people are doing when they're on their own.
Right.
So it would be helpful to have maybe them all in a group, and maybe that would generate some interest in questions and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think having a conference room, what I've done is I've done that, with the live trainings. You just take a group, maybe 20 at a time, and you sit them in a conference room. I know with COVID, that's been hard, but you can sit people maybe in groups of 15 or 20. We can also sit outside, have them sit outside or with a room with ventilation and just do the training that way. And yes, if you have to do it online, if that's the only thing that, you can afford, it's better than doing nothing, right? It's better than you have to comply with the law anyway, right? Because what happens if you get sued and what's your defense going to be? One of the I guarantee you that the plaintiff's attorney is going to ask you in a deposition, did your employees attend the mandatory 2-hour training for managers and the mandatory 1-hour training for employees? And you're going to say, oops, no. So it's better than nothing to have the online training. I'm just saying that if you really, really, really want to get through to the workers and get through to some of the managers to really understand this is serious stuff. I could really get my owner, the owner of this company, in trouble, or myself in trouble if I don't stop these shenanigans at work. I got to stop the rumors. I got to stop bullying people. I got to stop making fun of people and using inappropriate language at work. I got to stop showing, sending emails with the things that I've seen, the pictures of the genitals, the little porn, screenshots of porn, dirty movies, jokes with double entendre. Among Latinos, we use a lot of double entendre jokes. They're double meaning jokes, right? And you're saying something, but you really mean something else that's completely sexual. And it just is so disrespectful. So I can't tell you how disrespectful and inappropriate and vulgar the double meaning jokes are. And so many employees have to deal with that because there's usually just a couple, 1 or 2 employees who are doing it, and everybody else has to suffer and listen to this. And it's so annoying. And, eventually someone's going to complain, and you need to nip it in the bud. And these trainings are so key for that. Don't do this. I don't want to hear any joking. Whatever you can joke, go out, go back home and joke, or talk with your friends and go joke. But at work, you cannot joke about this kind of stuff. I don't want to hear any sexual jokes at work. Christine, I think you have your hand up.
I do. I just wanted to share a couple of things. I put your presentation, the article that you wanted to share with everyone, as well as your latest newsletter in the chat.
Yeah.
Those are all downloadable for everybody. And I also wanted to share that one of our members did something brilliant all along the lines of what you were promoting.
Okay.
He hosted a lunch on a Saturday, paid all of his employees to attend, invited their families, and had a professional do the harassment training. And he never had an issue before. He just did this because he felt like he needed to satisfy the requirement. So everything that you recommended was brilliant and worked very well for him, and he's got a rock star company out of it. So just
Yeah.
wanted to compliment you on all of your suggestions because they work.
Yeah, they really do. That's awesome what you just told me, you
Mhm.
know?
And he paid them for the day, paid for their lunch, their families to attend, and paid them for the time.
That's amazing. I mean, that's how you get buy-in, right?
He treated them like family and with respect, which was then returned.
Right. And that's all you want. You just want to keep hammering that in. We have a respectful workplace. We want a respectful workplace. We don't want anybody to be treated badly or to be, treated diminished. We don't want anyone to, we don't want to hear any inappropriate jokes and commentary at work, any movies, any emails, any texts. We don't want you to send texts to anybody. You can do all that with your friends outside of work, but not here. This is a place of work. We support you. We're here for you, but we don't want any of this stuff. It's inappropriate.
So Karen, I have a quick question because we do have a few more minutes.
Mm.
So it would seem to me like the real pre-prevention of this would be to hire good managers. Do you have any tips on the hiring process or what to look at in terms of experience or previous expertise in this area that would like give a higher an advantage in good management?
Well, I know that's a tough one, right? Because you do the best you can, right? When you do the application, always have a written application. You can do a background check under California law. I would do a background check. And then just really spend some time with that person. How do you feel about this? And we're going to require that you have a 2-hour training on sexual harassment that's and other discrimination and harassment prevention. And you can ask, during the interview, has anyone ever filed a lawsuit against you or a complaint ever been filed? I mean, it's like you can't possibly, that's tough. That's very tough for employers. I get it. People, you can't spot a harasser or a jokester who's going to be toxic at work, right? You can't. You'd have to have a sixth sense. But I do know that, I think you really need to, I think HR managers are trained to do a better job at the hiring process. Maybe hire an HR consultant to help you with hiring. But I think we need to have a larger conversation about hiring. I don't think I can answer all your questions right now about hiring, because that's a tough one, because you also have to be careful and not discriminate during the hiring process, right? But you can ask questions about, someone just put on the chat, I've been in HR for 25 years and your training was on point. Okay, I thought it was going to be about the hiring. Thank you. I appreciate that. But you do need someone who understands the language, and if the manager, for sure, if the manager isn't able to communicate with the employees in Spanish and being honest, and I think during the hiring process, you can explain, we have a zero tolerance. You need to set the tone from the beginning, right? We have zero tolerance policy here at work. We don't want any shenanigans. We don't want any bullying. We don't want anyone to be making jokes and making it inappropriate for anyone to feel uncomfortable at work. No touching. We don't want any touching at work. So I guess you could ask those kind of questions, maybe hypotheticals. I can come up with some hypotheticals that I can send you, Cecilia.
Mhm.
That might be good to use in the hiring process.
That would be legal to ask.
Yeah.
That would be good. Yeah, I think that would be good backup because I think some of these companies on here are big and some of these companies are growing. So maybe those would be resources that the smaller companies might need in the future, or maybe the bigger ones will need to relook at it sometime if they're
Yeah.
rehiring. So that would be great.
I'm putting that down on my to-do list to send you some
Great.
hiring questions. And
So Karen, I wanted to thank you so much for spending this time with us and for sharing your resources. All of you are going to, and thank you all for attending and spending some time to hear how you can be better employers and have better communications with your staff, particularly the Spanish speaking staff. So I wanted to thank Karen. And so let's just give her a hand. Yay, those that we can see that have hands. And then we have, as Christine said, put stuff in the chat. So you can save your chat. I think most of you know how to save your chat. You hit those little 3 dots and you can save your chat. So you have those resources, and then you can download those other items. And then I wanted to let you know that I also have some translation resources that might be available to you and some interpreter resources. So I'm going to put my name and my email in the chat. And with that, I'm going to pass over to Christine. I think she's going to let us know about a few things that are happening with the Marin Builders Association. I wanted to thank you from the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And I'm also going to put up our Facebook, which is very active. Our website is currently under reconstruction, but our website is very active. So I'll put those in the chat while Christine updates us on MBA.
And please feel free to email me. I just want to, if you need any additional resources, because I sent you my newsletter and I sent you the training, the presentation today, and then an article about working with Spanish speaking employees. So let me know if you don't get it. You can always email me at karen@vcworkplacesolutions.com or call me.
Great.
Thank you so much for the opportunity and great meeting all of you. Take care. Best
Thank
of
you,
luck.
Karen.
Bye.
And you're getting a lot of thank yous that are coming to me as direct messages. So I just wanted you to know there's a lot of love for you out here.
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay.
So thank you, Cecilia, too, for the opportunity just to share that we are hoping to and planning another Lunch and Learn with Karen in October. And the date is tentatively set for October 28th, and it'll be this same format. Stay tuned. We will be sharing some email information about that soon, or it'll be found on our event calendar, which we will be promoting from there. And then this Tuesday at Marin Builders Association, 660 Las Colinas Avenue, in our back parking lot, which we just redid, we are hosting a member appreciation Taco Tuesday event. Members and all of you are most welcome to attend. We would love to see you. It's from 4 to 6 p.m. Come meet some of the Marin Builders members and have a taco and a beverage on us.
Great. Thanks a lot, Karen. Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.